Winner of the Grand Prix at this year's Cannes Film Festival, Sentimental Value is holding a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes and being dubbed one of the best movies of the year. With a lot of awards potential and the first movie I saw here at TIFF, I think Sentimental Value is the perfect movie for all of awards season. But honestly, it didn't work that well for me. Let's talk about it. There is a lot to talk about with Sentimental Value, but for me, the main core of it all comes in with the overall cast. I think all of them are just working at a phenomenal level. That is the only aspect of this movie where I have literally zero flaws with it. I'm gonna pronounce all of these names wrong, so I do apologize in advance. Renate Renziv plays Nora Borg, who's the main character that we're following, and then her father is played by Stellan Skarsgård, who is the actual filmmaker in this movie. And a lot of this film is based around movies and the love for movies and how movies connect and tear apart families, and I'll get more into that in just a second here. Ellie Fanning plays the girl cast as Stellan Skarsgård's daughter in the film, but actually my favorite performance of the entire film comes from Ingla's daughter Lilias. Definitely pronouncing that wrong, I do apologize, but she is absolutely amazing. She plays the sister of the main character, and that's really where I think this film exceeds, is in that dynamic. I mean, I think all of the relationships in this film are interesting because the movie is about familial relationships, so if they weren't, then the movie would just suck overall. But I feel like I was invested in this sister relationship. I just wasn't nearly as invested in the father-daughter relationship, which is what most of the movie hinges on. I feel like a lot of the acting is based in kind of being subliminal, like they're not supposed to show their exact emotions at all times, but you do get a read of all of it from the characters, which is where I think the writing also comes in, and it's great. Again, singularly, the characters work within the relationships, but I just don't really think I was invested enough in the main relationship to actually care that much. My biggest flaw for the film in terms of the storylines comes in with the daughter competition with Ellie Fanning, who plays the daughter in the actual movie that Stellan Skarsgård is trying to make. I think the performances are great across the board, but I don't think the two storylines interconnecting at one point, that peaking moment, none of it really ends up working for me. And this is where I think the evolution of the movie really comes into play. And honestly, it's my biggest problem with the movie, in that the first half was genuinely just not very interesting to me. And a lot of my friends that I saw this film with disagreed. You know, everyone has their own opinion, but the third act itself is absolutely amazing, but it doesn't really involve the Ellie Fanning plot, which is I think why I liked it so much. Thematically, I don't want to get too deep into the movie just because I feel like I could potentially get into spoilers, but a lot of this movie is just knowing about your family and the impacts that they can have on you through spending time with you and being away from you. And I find that to be a very interesting idea with all of the characters that they choose to follow. They follow after a certain person's death in the family and how all of that brings them together. And it feels like I'm kind of just rambling on about this story, but I think the inciting plot of the movie is so interesting, but the writing never capitalizes on it right away. And it feels like such a slow burn, and that's fine. But to an extent, the cinematography, though it is beautiful, feels a little bit pretentious. They do this thing of cutting before scenes feel like they should actually close, and it feels like an emotional tease, but not in a warranted way. I feel like if you build up characters enough and you get to the second half of the film, that's warranted, that's completely understandable, because we feel like we know the characters at that point. But it feels like we are purposefully having information taken away from us, and it doesn't feel worth it by the end. I wanted to know more about these characters, I wanted to love these characters, but honestly I just couldn't get attached to them because I was seeing such minuscule moments of their lives together. Nora Borg, I think as a character, is so compelling, especially after not only the opening of the movie when they're kind of describing the familial ties in just her life, her home, everything, but the first scene with her actually in it, she is on a whole other level of a phenomenal performance. But again, we just never really tap into that visceral aspect of her character in a real life sense. We get that in her acting moments, but none of that translates over to me. This all just boils down to somewhat uninteresting storytelling, in my opinion. The pacing is just not very great, which pulled me out of the movie even more. It feels far longer than 2 hours and 13 minutes, which I don't think is a good thing, especially for a movie that's composed like this in a physical composition sense of everything feels so wide, and you get close and emotional moments, but those moments don't feel warranted to me, so it feels like we're just moving at a really odd pace. It's slow, and the cutting to black felt unneeded, and it just kind of felt like rage bait at a certain point where I wanted to know more and they just never told me more. One of the most interesting ideas to me going in was the fact that this was a movie about movies, and I thought that that was going to be more of an essential plot point. It's more so just a character inciting thing, and I actually thought the utilization of that was very interesting, and the way that they're able to connect movies to your personal relationships, it's something that I've never really seen explored in films before, so I like that that stride has been taken. Usually with movies about movies, it's about making movies and like the production aspect of it, but this time they take more of an indie sense to the filmmaking in that it's not like a big blockbuster production or a bajillion moving pieces. It's about who you love and who you care about, and that's the only way that this movie is going to get made. There's a lot of thematic ideas about what the movie really means and why the movie is actually being made. All of this probably sounds super ambiguous if you haven't seen the film already, but I can't get into much more detail than that because that would be spoilers. But I genuinely love the utilization of the idea of movies about movies, and I think that's arguably the best part about this entire film. At the end of the day, I can't say I really enjoyed my time with Sentimental Value, but the ideas that it tries to get across to the audience are really, really well done. It's executed in such an interesting way that just didn't specifically work for me, but a lot of my friends really enjoyed this movie. Overall, I'm going to give Sentimental Value a 7 out of 10, but if you enjoyed Joachim Trier's previous film, I would definitely check this out, and let me know what you thought of Sentimental Value in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.